kind of odd that so many of the native names all up and down the East Coast have survived. Native words, native names, and names of roads and parks and things like that. But then they just say, well, we got rid of all the Indians, but you used a whole bunch of our language and tell a lot of our stories. And then just didn't know that we were still here.
The Nanaco tribe would have their powwow, and we would go up to it all the time because we had familiar ties to the Eastern Shore communities, and then we had our own. We didn't call it a powwow; it was private between the Piscataway tribe and us. We did a green corn ceremony every year. But it wasn't open to the public, and it wasn't open to other tribes. But we came together as two tribes and celebrated the green corn and held ceremony. So that was, I guess, my introduction to what today looks like a powwow.
You know, we've got the community of Mattaponi that's in both of those locations and within these 3 states. And, you know, we expand over to California. We've got some enrolled members in California and so forth. But, you know, there are communities and that reside or resided in Richmond many years ago that lived within 2-3 mile radius and next door to one another.
Yes, we get all tribes from everywhere. People, you know, a powwow, yes, it's cultural and in some ways ceremonial, but it's also like a family gathering. You get to see people you haven't seen for a year, and you get to bring people in who maybe have not been to a powwow before, and then they start coming every year.
Well, now we're having culture classes for the elders. We're having culture classes for adults. Then we're having summer program for the kids to where they come in, and we're doing different things from beading, pottery, and leather, just different projects, different things. This past summer, the kids they all helped out in making making a net. So we have a net that's handmade by the Eastern Chickahominy children that will go in the museum. So we're doing different things and trying to teach the traditional ways of how we were taught when we were growing up.
This is something that was created many years ago between the chiefs, so we weren't running over top of each other for what we called homecoming. Then you have Upper Mattaponi, you have Chickahominy, you have other tribes that have their homecoming service on Sundays. Mattaponi chose the 4th Sunday of August, always. And that's a big event. Everybody knows what it is. And we have people from all over the states that come to homecoming. And we also have people invited. Everyone's welcome to come to a homecoming service, and then we eat on the grounds. And then there's a singing song service after homecoming.
The big thing that I remember as a kid was all of the men going down to Occupation Creek. It was spring when the herring was eaten, and they would go down and fish and fish and fish and bring back fish, and we would all gather and clean the fish and salt them down, and every family got however many for the winter to keep them, and all of the remains went to the gardens, and that was kind of how it was done.
I think one of the things that's interesting about education is early in the 1900s, it was here on the reservation. And then many of the students were forced to go, to Kansas, to Oklahoma, North Carolina. So my uncle, for example, went to Haskell Institute in Kansas. Some of our relatives talk about going to Cherokee or in Oklahoma. And one relative talks about going out there for a year and coming back and having no memory of that year at all because of the trauma that happened to her at that point. So after that phase was over, then it went back to Mattaponi schoolhouse. I always joke with my mom that she was the valedictorian of her class because there's only one other person in school with her at that age, when she was that age.
Because
Indians had to assimilate into the culture that they were becoming a part of in order to survive. And in order to do that, they began to give up their language because they had to communicate with the main language.
I'd say it goes back to the early 1800s. Our local neighbors in the county had petitioned the General Assembly twice to take away the reservation because they felt we were no longer Indian. They used the terms mulatto, mongrel, black, whatever, and we fought, and the General Assembly did help us and would not take that action. But in order to enforce our native identity, our ancestors felt to protect themselves, the land, is that they did go against African Americans, at least gave the appearance of that to appease our local white neighbors and the General Assembly and whatever else. But even while we were doing that, we were recognized for assisting runaway slaves. We were basically part of the Underground Railroad. Notices would be posted looking for runaway slaves, and they would point out, look on the Pamunkey Reservation and such. So I think we had a dual identity. Publicly, we were, like I say, to appease our white neighbors, we were coming against, but privately, we were helping.
Many years ago, here on the reservation, there was no work. And people had to travel to Richmond. That was that Plecker era that caused people to, I'm going to move to Philadelphia, New Jersey, because the work was there too. So with that said and done, there are communities built in Richmond that was from Mattaponi, from Upper Mattaponi, from other tribes that kind of lived in the same community.
Therefore, we do, to get back to the question, is we do have a lot of our tribal citizens that went north looking for jobs and educational opportunities. Actually, we got a lot of folks that live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, because that was the place to go to get jobs. It was a melting pot of nationalities, so there wasn't nearly as much racism. And our second, we have a little Upper Mattaponi right in the city of Philadelphia. We have so many tribal citizens that moved there, lived there, had children who lived there. And so that makes our powwow a homecoming, because especially this year, so many of our citizens made the trip down for our powwow from Philadelphia and other parts of the continental United States.
Express interest in moving back into the area. And actually, my son, who I never thought would ever live in King William County, is now building a house on the property that I grew up on.
The military presence always impressed me, just as growing up, and still as an adult, just how our folks were, not to say so willing to serve, but basically we're serving for a country that said we didn't exist, you know. But still, just thinking about it in your heart, you're still fighting for your country. You know, if you know this was our land. Yeah.
Well, gratefully, we have younger people in our tribe who are interested in language, who do their word of the week. They send an audio file, and they're trying to teach us who have more gray hair how to say certain words. So, yes, language restoration is going on right now. This is another instance of where we're grateful for documents. Thomas Jefferson was very interested in saving languages, indigenous languages. And so he had linguists who went out and collected the languages, so these word lists. One of those word lists happened to be the Nottoway language, and that's what is being used as the basis for restoring the Nottoway language.
I mean, they're creating words and stuff. but our tribal language is on file at the Philadelphia Institute of Religion in Pennsylvania, okay? Thank you, Thomas Jefferson, because he sent the packet to Peter de Pontier, who was a student of Indian languages in Philadelphia in 1820, and we have copies of correspondence in our archives between he and Peter de Pontier, wherein Jefferson initially told Peter de Pontier, I've come across this ancient Powhatan language, Algonquin language, okay? But thanks to Peter de Pontier and Shula, who was a minister, they wrote Jefferson back and told him, my kind sir, I'm sorry, but this is not an Algonquin or a Lenape dialect. It is a mixed dialect of the 6 Iroquois nations, the Mohawk, Cayuga, the Seneca, the Oneida, and Tuscarora, okay? And he said, he kind of inferred that this may be the root language of the Iroquois nation, okay?
I think that Pamunkey may be having language classes now, but I think other than them, we're the only tribe that teaches it. And I don't know what they're teaching. You know, the language that's in the early, in John White's book and Smith's, and what Blair Roots told me was that is trading language. It's a kind of a mixture of English and Algonquin so that they could trade back and forth. But, you know, I don't know. We've got the dictionary and it's got just about every word in it, I think, that would have been spoken back then. And obviously languages have changed in the past 400 years, but hey, at least we're starting something.
We have over 200 enrollees that have been approved by the chief and council, because that's part of the criteria. After we gather all the facts, they have to approve it. And we have more to go. I mean, we have more that we're sitting on right now, waiting for just individual information.
You know, and a lot of it, like Robert was saying, has had to be reconstructed for obvious reasons. But I don't think it makes it any less indigenous. I mean, you know, sometimes you have to relearn things that kind of have gone away for, you know, because of colonialism and everything that happened. But I think language is something that's particularly important because the language you speak in really affects and reflects the way you see the world. So I think kind of relearning the Algonquin language within the tribe is a good way to kind of reconnect with ancestors, particularly ones who spoke the old language.
In furniture, they slept on reed mats and stuff, okay? And but anyway, he said it was square. So what we did, we put a rectangle of the square up, okay? And let the wood line over there represent the other palisade fort, you know? And we're in the process of redoing roundhouses. There's another longhouse coming up there to the left, roundhouse over there, but that roundhouse with the palm mats around the bottom of it was completely built with bark cover. They came out here and destroyed it. After we got that 255 acres, and it belonged to a hunt club whose family had hunted it for 125 years. Tore it up.
For my grandchildren, it's coming and hanging out that's more important than that meeting.
Right.
It's coming and talking to the older folks. It's coming and going down to the river. So it's the interaction with the community that's drawing them. It isn't the class that's over there. It's not formal. It's community. It's being here with people they know and learning.
Just that we're still here.
Always.
We're still proud Americans. The natives have been victimized for years. I don't hold a grudge there, but you know, we're here, and I think that's one of the problems, that we're still a reminder